I never thought a single glance on a freezing Christmas Eve would change my life. I was just a tired single dad, heading home to my little girl, when I saw her, tiny, shivering, digging through a trash bin in the snow. I couldn't walk away. That night tested my heart and my courage, and everything I believed about family. Do you believe one moment can change everything? If yes, like this video and share your thoughts in the comments. The wind cut across my face as I stepped off the last bus and pulled my jacket tighter. My hands smelled faintly of cardboard and fast food grease from the evening deliveries. Christmas Eve, again. I always thought the second year, without me it would be easier, but the silence of the streets only made it worse. I glanced at the cheap watch on my wrist. Almost 11. Lily would be asleep by now, hugging the little stuffed penguin she carried everywhere. I hated that I couldn't buy her the pink bicycle she'd circled in the store flyer. At least a tiny tree in our living room had lights. She'd insisted we plug them in before I left for work. The snow had started falling harder as I trudged down Maple Street toward our apartment. The bakery at the corner was dark, its holiday display of sugar cookies still in the window. I lowered my head against the wind, then stopped. Something moved near the trash bin behind the shop. At first, I thought it was a stray dog, but when the figure straightened, I saw a thin pair of shoulders beneath a ragged red coat. The person, no, a child, dug carefully through a torn plastic bag, ignoring the snow piling in her hair. I swallowed. I'd seen plenty of hard things delivering at night, but this, a kid, shouldn't be there. I stepped closer, boots crunching on the frozen ground. She flinched at the sound, still crouched, and pulled something, maybe a piece of bread, close to her chest as if I might snatch it away. My heart thudded. I thought of Lily at home, warm under the blanket. I took a slow breath and stayed a few steps back. "Hey!" My voice came out softer than I expected. "You okay out here?" No answer. Her head stayed down, black hair falling over her face. The streetlight above flickered, throwing long shadows across the snow. I felt the urge to fill the silence, to say something that wouldn't scare her. "It's late." I tried again. "Pretty cold, too. You live around here." Still nothing. She shifted, almost like she was ready to bolt. I rubbed my hands together for warmth, my fingers stiff from a shift. Inside, a war started. Part of me said to keep walking, mind my own business. I was already behind on rent. I didn't need trouble. But another part, the part that had held Lily through nights of her own tears, wouldn't let me. I remembered Mia's last Christmas. Her voice had been weak then, but I still heard it sometimes. "Promise me you'll keep the light in her life, even when it's dark for you." I crouched a little, so I wouldn't tower over the girl. "Look, I'm not going to hurt you. I just thought maybe you could use some help. My name's Daniel." A breeze stirred the loose strands of her hair. I saw her fingers tremble as she clutched the bit of bread. I couldn't stop picturing Lily's small hands around her stuffed penguin, the way she asked every year if Santa could bring her mom back. That ache in my chest deepened. I cleared my throat. "You hungry? I've got a few bucks. There's a vending machine down the block. Hot cocoa, even." Her shoulders stiffened, but she didn't run. That felt like something. The snow crunched behind me as a distant car passed. I glanced toward the intersection, empty except for the bus shelter and the dark bakery. "Look, it's freezing. If you don't want to talk, that's okay," I said quietly. "But standing out here, it's not safe." For a heartbeat, I thought she might speak. Instead, she turned slightly, just enough that the streetlight caught the side of her face. Pale skin, a faint bruise near her temple. My stomach tightened. I lowered my voice even more, like I was speaking to Lily after a nightmare. "Hey, I'm just a dad walking home. I've got a little girl, too. I couldn't walk past you and not ask." The wind gusted, rattling the lid of the trash bin. A plastic bag fluttered against her knee. She shifted her weight, but stayed crouched. I heard a tiny sniff, the sound of someone trying hard not to cry. I stepped one careful pace closer, my boots slow on the snow. "You don't have to tell me anything. I couldn't ignore you. Not tonight." Finally, she looked up. Only for a second, but enough for me to see her eyes, dark, wary, glinting in the weak light. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. I offered what I hoped was a reassuring smile. It's all right. I'm not here to get you in trouble. Another gust of wind swept between us. I shivered but didn't move. The girl hesitated, then shifted back a little. Her voice was barely more than a whisper, raw from the cold. I leaned forward, trying to catch the words. But before she could speak, a distant siren wailed somewhere in the city, and she froze again like a cornered animal. I softened my tone to a murmur, steady, patient. Hey, are you okay? She didn't move when I asked, Hey, are you okay? Instead, her thin shoulders jerked as if the words had struck her. I took a small step closer. Easy, I said quietly. I'm not going to hurt you. Her voice came out sharp but shaky. I'm fine. Go away. I noticed the way her breath fogged in the cold, fast and shallow. She kept her eyes down, hair falling like a curtain over her face. Her hands were bare and red against a snow-dusted trash bag. I shifted the strap of my delivery bag and knelt a little so I wouldn't loom over her. It's freezing. You'll get sick out here. She hunched her shoulders, muttered, I said I'm fine. I could hear the brittle edge in her tone, the sound of someone ready to run. She's scared to death. I thought, if I push too hard, she'll bolt. I slowly unwound the scarf from my neck and held it out. Here, take this. It's warmer than whatever you've got. She peeked at the scarf for a split second, then shook her head quickly. I don't need it. My fingers tingled in the cold. I forced a small smile. Humor me. I've got another one at home. My little girl makes me wear too many anyway. That last line made her glance up, just a flicker, but enough for me to see her eyes, dark, wide, and rimmed red from the wind. There was a trace of disbelief there, like she wasn't used to anyone offering anything. I pointed toward the corner of the street. There's a vending machine down the block. Hot cocoa, tea, something warm. I can get you a cup. She shifted on her knees, ready to spring. I can't go with you. Then I'll bring it here. No strings. Just let me help a little. The way her fingers curled tighter around the scrap of bread in her lap made my chest tighten. That's when I noticed a faint yellow-green bruise circling her wrist. I swallowed hard. Did somebody hurt you? Her head snapped up, eyes flashing with fear. No. I raised my palm slowly. Okay, I won't ask again. Just, I noticed, that's all. For a few seconds, we only heard the softest of falling snow and the distant hum of a bus engine. My thoughts were a jumble. She's no older than Lily. She should be home with someone reading her a bedtime story, not freezing behind a bakery bin. I said more gently this time, Look, I'm Daniel. I'm just heading home from work. I've got a 6-year-old daughter waiting for me. I'm a dad. The word dad seemed to land somewhere deep. She stopped fidgeting, her gaze fixed on the scarf in my hands. I don't need anyone, she whispered, though her voice cracked at the last word. I sat back on my heels, kept my tone even. Maybe, but everyone needs to be warm, and no one should be out here alone on a night like this. Her eyes glistened briefly before she turned her face away. I can take care of myself. I bit the inside of my cheek, fighting the urge to say what I really thought. Instead, I said, I believe you. Still, would it be so bad to let someone buy you a hot drink? You don't even have to talk to me. Her breath shuddered out in a little cloud. She didn't answer, but she didn't run either. I stood slowly, brushed the snow from my knees. Wait here. I'll be right back. I hurried to the vending machine at the corner, fed in a few coins, and waited for the paper cup to drop. The warmth seeped into my fingers as I carried it back. She was still there, crouched by the bin, but her shoulders had relaxed a fraction. Here, I said, kneeling again and offering the cup. Careful, it's hot. She reached for it hesitantly, her thin fingers almost brushing mine. Thanks, she mumbled, so soft I barely heard. You're welcome, I said. No need to thank me for something this small. She blew gently on the cocoa, then sipped, her lips trembling from the heat and the cold. I caught myself watching her like I'd watched Lily the first time she drank from a cup without spilling. I asked quietly, Where are your parents? Someone must be worried about you. The warmth that had just started to soften her expression vanished. She lowered the cup, eyes suddenly guarded again. I don't. I don't want to talk about them. I hesitated, then nodded. All right, we don't have to talk about them. Just, I wanted to know if someone's looking for you. She shook her head and took another small sip, still refusing to meet my eyes. I looked up at the dark shop windows, the street lamps glowing through the falling snow, and felt that shift inside me, the one that had kept me from walking away. I can't leave her out here. Not tonight. Not like this. I tried again, keeping my voice gentle. Listen, I don't know what happened, but I can't just walk off and pretend I didn't see you. I've got an extra blanket at home. My daughter's already asleep, but if you need a safe place for the night. Her head jerked toward me, alarm flashing across her face. No, I'm fine. Really, I'll go soon. I rubbed my cold hands together, unsure whether to push or back off. My conscience was a knot in my chest. If I walk away now, she might freeze. If I insist, she might run. I forced a small, reassuring smile. Okay, I won't force you. At least finish the cocoa. It's Christmas Eve. We should all have one warm thing. She stared at the cup, silent. Her thin fingers tightened around it as though it might vanish. After a long pause, she murmured, Emily. I blinked. That your name? She gave the faintest nod. Emily. Before I could say more, headlights swept across the snow. A patrol car slowed as it rolled down the street toward us. The red and blue lights reflected off the wet pavement. Emily froze, her whole body going rigid like a startled deer. I heard myself whisper, low and steady, Easy, Emily, it's just a car. But she was already backing up a step, eyes wide with panic as the cruiser crawled closer. Emily's eyes locked on the slow-moving patrol car, as if it were a predator. Before I could say anything, she spun around and bolted toward the alley. Hey, wait! I hurried after her, crunching through the snow. She slipped on an icy patch, nearly fell. I caught her by the elbow. Easy. It's okay. They're just passing by. She twisted in my grip, voice rising. No, they'll take me back. I can't go back. Her panic startled me more than the flashing lights had. The cruiser rolled past us, never even slowing, but Emily still trembled like the siren, might wail any second. I kept my voice low. Look at me. Nobody's taking you anywhere right now. You're safe. I promise. She yanked her arm free, but didn't run again. Her breath came in short, sharp bursts that fogged the cold. I tried again, gentler. Emily, why are you so scared of the police? Her answer was almost a whisper. Because they'll send me back to him. I frowned. Him? She bit her lip hard and shook her head. Something in my chest tightened. She's running from somebody. From home. What kind of home makes a kid this scared? A gust of wind stung my ears. I glanced up the street. The patrol car had turned the corner. Gone. I looked back at her, skin pale under the street lamp, scarf slipping off one thin shoulder. Come on, I said quietly. There's a diner around the corner. Warm place. We can talk or not talk. At least you can sit inside. She hesitated. I shouldn't. It's open all night. Nobody will bother us. Just a drink, that's all. I saw her fingers twitch against the empty cocoa cup she still carried like it was a shield. After a long pause, she gave a tiny nod. The bell over the diner door jingled as we stepped in. The blast of warm air fogged my glasses for a second. The place smelled of coffee and fried eggs, humming faintly with an old Christmas song from a radio. We slid into a booth by the window. The waitress, a tired woman with a kind smile, came over with menus. I ordered 2 hot chocolates and some toast. Emily sat hunched, staring at the table's fake marble surface. Her damp hair clung to her cheeks. I wrapped my hands around the warm cup when it came, letting the heat soak into my stiff fingers. You can warm your hands, too, I said, nodding at hers. Slowly, almost suspiciously, she copied me. Her small hands looked even smaller against the big mug. For a while, we just sat there listening to the hum of the heater. I didn't want to push, but I needed to understand. Emily, I said gently, earlier you said you couldn't go back. Is someone hurting you? She shook her head at first, then after a moment murmured, "He gets mad." I waited. She added, barely audible, "Sometimes he locks me out. I sleep in the shed." I clenched my jaw so I wouldn't curse out loud. She's just a kid sleeping in a shed in winter. She went on, staring at her mug. Mom doesn't stop him. She says it's my fault I make him angry. The words pierced through me sharper than the winter wind. I pictured Lily's small face, the way she sometimes still cried at night, missing her mom. The thought of Lily being treated like that made my stomach twist. I cleared my throat, keeping my voice steady. "Emily, none of that is your fault. Not one bit." She didn't answer, only hunched lower. I reached across the table, stopping short of touching her hands. "Listen, I'm just some guy who walked by tonight. But I've got a little girl, too. If somebody ever tried to hurt her," I caught myself, took a breath. "Nobody should have to live like that." Her eyes flicked up a first time, uncertain, as if trying to decide whether I meant it. I looked back, steady. "My wife, she passed away 2 years ago. Before she went, she made me promise something." I swallowed the lump in my throat. She said, "Always protect children, even when they're not ours." I haven't forgotten that. The words came out rougher than I meant, but I didn't look away. "You don't have to tell me everything tonight, but I can promise you this. I won't let you be alone out there." Her lower lip trembled. She pressed it tight to stop it. Then she nodded once, quick, like a secret she was afraid to say out loud. We drank the rest of the cocoa in silence. The waitress refilled my coffee, gave Emily a soft look, but didn't ask questions. I kept glancing at the clock on the wall. Past midnight already. Lily would be curled up in bed, dreaming under the little string lights. I hated to imagine her waking up to an empty apartment if I stayed out too long. I slid a few bills under the cup and stood. "Emily, it's late. I can't leave you here, and I'm not leaving you out in the cold either." She stiffened. "I don't want to go back." "You're not going back to him. I'm talking about coming with me, just for tonight. My daughter's at home, Lily. She's about your age." Emily stared at me as if weighing every word. "I've got a couch," I added softly. "It's warm. You can lock the door yourself if you need to feel safe." She glanced down at her worn shoes, then back up. I saw the battle in her eyes, the urge to run fighting against the wish to believe me. Finally, she gave a small, shaky nod. As we stepped back out into the quiet street, I felt the cold bite my face again, but inside my chest something steadied. This is a first step. I'm not sure what comes next, but I can't let her go back to the snow and the shed. I adjusted my scarf and looked at her as we started walking. "Let's get you somewhere warm tonight." The elevator rattled as we rose. Emily stood close but kept her eyes on the worn floor. I still heard the crunch of snow in my ears from the walk over. I glanced at her. "You okay?" She gave a tiny shrug. She looked so small under that ragged coat. What am I dragging her into? When we stepped into the hallway, the familiar creak of the floorboards calmed me a little. I unlocked the door as quietly as I could. "Come on in," I whispered. The hinges squeaked. The moment we crossed the threshold, a soft voice came from the darkened living room. "Daddy." Lily's sleepy figure appeared, rubbing her eyes, her hair sticking up in wild little tufts. She blinked at Emily, then at me. "Hi, sweetheart," I said gently. "Sorry we woke you. This is Emily. She's staying here tonight." Lily tilted her head, curiosity bright even in the dim light. "Is she my friend?" Emily half hid behind my arm. I crouched beside Lily. "Maybe, if she wants to be. But it's late. Why don't we all get some rest first?" Lily's gaze lingered on Emily's frayed sleeves. "Are you cold?" she asked. Emily shook her head, barely audible. "A little." Without another word, Lily padded to her bed, grabbed the extra blanket with cartoon stars, and handed it to Emily. "You can use this. It's warm." Emily blinked at her, startled, then hugged the blanket as if it were a treasure. God, kids have a way of cutting right through everything, I thought, watching them. I set up the couch for Emily, tucking a pillow under the blanket. The apartment felt even smaller with another person inside. Second-hand furniture, a narrow hallway. the faint hum of the radiator. "Thank you," Emily whispered. I nodded. "It's not much, but it's safe." For a moment, I wondered what the authorities would say if they knew I brought a runaway home. I should call. "No, not yet. She needs a night of peace at least. Am I breaking the law just by letting her stay?" I shook the thought aside and went to check on Lily. She was already back under her covers, clutching her favorite doll. "Go to sleep, Pumpkin," I said softly, brushing her hair from her face. "Night, Daddy." When I returned to the living room, Emily was sitting cross-legged on the couch, the blanket pulled around her shoulders. Her eyes followed me nervously. "You don't have to be scared here," I told her. "Lily's a good kid, and I'll be right here." She nodded, then lay down, face turned toward the wall. I sat in the armchair for a while, watching the faint orange glow of the streetlight slide across the room. The city hummed quietly outside. I'm crossing lines I swore I wouldn't. But what kind of man would throw a child back into the cold just because it's the legal thing to do? Finally, I dozed off. A whisper woke me. I opened my eyes to see the glow of Lily's nightlight spilling into the hallway. I stood and tiptoed to her doorway. Lily lay on her side, the doll cradled in her arms. Emily sat on the floor beside the bed, blanket draped over her shoulders like a cape. "I used to have a doll like that," Emily whispered. "Really?" Lily's voice was drowsy but kind. "Yeah, she had one button eye. I left her when I had to leave home." "Maybe she's waiting for you," Lily murmured, already drifting back toward sleep. Emily smiled faintly, touching the doll's tiny dress. I stepped back before they noticed me. My chest tightened. She's not just running from pain. She's reaching for something that feels like home. How can I send her back to that shed? A few hours later, the soft gray of dawn crept through the thin curtains. I made coffee quietly, careful not to wake them. Both girls were still asleep, Lily with one arm dangling off the bed, Emily curled like a small bird on a rug beside her. I stood there for a moment, sipping the bitter coffee. This can't last. Someone's going to ask questions. I have to figure out what to do. But not yet. Just let them have this morning. A sudden, sharp knock at the door made my stomach clench. I set the mug down and glanced toward the bedroom where the girls slept, then stepped to the door. I opened a crack and saw Mr. Hanley, my landlord, standing there with his usual frown and a thick envelope in his hand. "Morning, Daniel," he said. "We need to talk. Got some news you're not going to like." I kept my hand on the doorknob, hoping the girls wouldn't wake. "Morning, Mr. Hanley," I whispered. His frown deepened. "Morning? It's barely light. We need to talk. Your rent's 2 weeks overdue, Daniel. I can't let it slide. You got until New Year's Eve, or I'll have to start eviction paperwork." A dull throb started behind my eyes. I just need a little more time. Work's been slow with the weather. I'll catch up. Hanley sighed, shifting the envelope in his hands. "I've heard that before. I like you. I know you're raising your girl alone. But I've got bills too. I'm warning you because I don't want to kick you out. Make it right by the 31st. "I will," I said quickly, hoping my voice didn't betray the knot in my stomach. He nodded once and trudged down the hall. I closed the door quietly, leaning my forehead against it for a second. New Year's Eve. That's barely a week. How am I supposed to pull that off and keep food on the table? "Daddy," Lily's small voice came from the bedroom. She rubbed her eyes and yawned. Emily peeked out behind her, blanket still around her shoulders. "Everything okay?" Lily asked. "Yeah," I said with a smile I didn't feel. "Just the landlord saying hi." Emily stayed silent but kept watching me, as if she could sense the tension. "Go back to sleep for a bit," I said gently. "It's still early." They nodded and shuffled back to the room. As soon as they were out of sight, I let out a shaky breath. I can't let them see me panic. I'll pick up every extra delivery shift I can get. I'll sleep when the rent's paid. That afternoon, I left them with an extra stack of coloring books and a plate of sandwiches. "Emily," I said before leaving, "I'll be gone for a few hours. Watch out for Lily, okay?" She hesitated, then nodded. "I will." Lily grinned. "We'll be fine, Daddy. We're going to draw snowmen." Their voices followed me out the door, soft and somehow steadier than my own. The days blurred together after that. Snow, deliveries, the steady hum of the van heater. I worked until my fingers ached from the cold, returning home long after sunset. One night, I found them sitting cross-legged by the little artificial Christmas tree we'd kept from last year. They were stringing popcorn garlands, Lily teaching Emily how to knot the thread. "You're getting good at that," Lily said. Emily laughed, an actual laugh, light and quick. I never did this before. I stayed in the doorway a moment, watching them. It's working. Lily's helping her heal. When they noticed me, they both beamed. "Daddy, look." Lily held up the lopsided garland. We made it all the way around the tree. I smiled despite the fatigue dragging at my bones. "Looks perfect." Christmas Eve arrived again. I finished a 12-hour shift, shoulders stiff, eyes gritty from the wind outside. The apartment was dim except for the glow of the tiny tree. At first, I thought they were still decorating. Then I saw them. Lily curled up on one side of the old rug beneath the tree, Emily on the other. Their hands were loosely clasped, heads tilted toward each other, fast asleep. The popcorn garland drooped across a branch above them like a crooked halo. I just stood there, the ache in my chest deeper than any exhaustion. Look at them. Emily's smile has come back. But what am I doing? I'm hiding her from the world. If someone finds out, she could be taken away, and I could lose both this home and her trust. I knelt down quietly, brushing a stray lock of hair from Lily's forehead, then pulling the blanket a little higher over Emily's shoulder. "Sleep well, girls," I murmured, the warmth I felt looking at them tangled with a sharp stab of guilt. Later, as I sat at the kitchen table with my head in my hands, the phone buzzed. The sound jolted me more than it should have. The screen showed an unfamiliar number. Spam call? No, not at this hour. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the green icon. The phone kept buzzing, the vibration rattling against the tabletop like a warning. I finally swiped to answer. "Hello." My voice came out lower than I expected. There was a brief crackle of silence, then a voice. Male, rough, deliberate. "Is Emily with you?" The words chilled me more than the winter wind ever could. The voice on the phone tightened every muscle in my body. "Is Emily with you?" the man repeated. I swallowed hard. Who is this? A shuffle, then a woman's voice broke in, trembling but urgent. "Please, my name's Sarah. I'm Emily's mother. I've been looking for her for weeks. Is she safe? Tell me she's safe." I froze, staring at the two sleeping girls under the tree. "She's here," I said quietly. "She's safe right now." Who was the man who just spoke? "My brother," she answered quickly. "I don't have anyone else to help me. Please, can I talk to her?" My heart thumped unevenly. If she's really Emily's mom, why does Emily look so terrified whenever I mention her family? "I'll check," I said and lowered the phone. I crouched beside Emily, gently shaking her shoulder. "Hey, someone wants to talk to you." She stirred, eyes blinking open, then immediately tensed. "Who?" "Your mom. She says she's been looking for you." Emily shook her head violently, sitting up. "No, I don't want to talk to her. Don't let her take me back." "Emily," I kept my voice low. "She says she's worried about you." Tears welled in her eyes. "If I go back, he'll find me. He'll hurt me again." My chest tightened. "Your stepfather?" She nodded, hugging her knees. "She always says he's changed, but he never does." I sat there for a long moment, phone still in my hand, feeling as if the room itself had gone silent. What if she's telling the truth? What if the mother is desperate, but blind to the danger? How do I know who to trust? I brought the phone back to my ear. She doesn't want to talk right now. She's scared. Sarah's breath caught on the other end. "I understand. I just need to know she's alive. I've been calling shelters, the police. No one can tell me anything. Please, can we meet? Just so I can explain." I hesitated. Meeting her could be the only way to find the truth. But Emily's wide, pleading eyes made my stomach knot. "Tomorrow morning," I said finally, "at the cafe on Pine Street. It's public. Safe." "Thank you," Sarah whispered. You're doing more than you know. I ended the call and slipped the phone into my pocket. Emily looked up at me. You're not going to make me go with her, right? Not without knowing everything, I said softly. I promised I wouldn't let you be alone. I'm keeping that promise. Her shoulders eased just a little, and she lay back down beside Lily, still gripping her hand. The next morning I left Lily with our neighbor, Mrs. Turner, and took Emily to the cafe. The winter sun was pale, hanging low over the snowy street. Emily's hood was pulled so far forward I could barely see her face. You sure you want to do this? I asked as we reached the door. I don't want to see her, Emily murmured, but I want to hear what she says. Inside, the warm smell of coffee and baked bread. Sarah was already there, sitting near the window with a paper cup clutched between her hands. Her hair was pulled back hastily, and the circles under her eyes spoke of sleepless nights. Daniel? She asked, standing as we approached. Yeah. I guided Emily to the seat across from her. Sarah's gaze went straight to the girl. Oh, sweetheart, her voice cracked. I thought I'd lost you. Emily flinched at the words and kept her eyes on the table. I cleared my throat. She says she's afraid of going back. That your husband, Sarah's head snapped up. He's not her father. And he's not living with us anymore. I swear, I made him leave after the last time. I just want her home. Emily's voice was barely a whisper. You said that before. And then you let him come back. Sarah's eyes glistened. I was wrong. I thought he'd change. I thought a family needed to stay together. I won't let him near you again, Emily. I've been searching everywhere. I sat quietly, torn in two directions. I want to believe her. I see the pain in her face. But Emily's shaking hands tell me the fear is still real. If I send her back and the man shows up again, I'll never forgive myself. The waitress brought hot chocolates we hadn't ordered. Emily wrapped her fingers around the cup as if for courage. Why didn't you tell anyone sooner? I asked Sarah. I tried, she said, voice hoarse. The police opened a file, but they said runaways often come back on their own. I couldn't sit and wait. I've been out searching every night. Emily glanced up at her mother, her lips parting as if she wanted to speak, but couldn't find the words. Emily, I said gently, I don't know all that happened, but I know your mom seems like she wants to make it right. Her eyes flickered toward me. You don't know him. He always finds us. The words settled over the table like a shadow. I glanced out the window, needing a breath of calm. That's when I noticed a black sedan parked across the street. A man sat inside, leaning slightly forward, eyes fixed on us. His silhouette was sharp against the morning light. A ripple of unease crawled up my spine. I know that posture. Watching. Waiting. Is that him? I lowered my voice. Sarah, do you recognize that car? Her face went pale as she turned to look. Emily followed her gaze, then shrank in her seat, fingers gripping the edge of the table. I felt my stomach drop. The truth found us, and so did he. For a heartbeat, none of us breathed. The man in the black sedan stepped out, heavy boots crunching over the crusted snow. His eyes locked on Emily. She pressed closer to me, her hand trembling against my sleeve. It's him, she whispered. I rose slowly, my palms damp. Stay calm. Don't let her see you panic. He stopped a few feet from the cafe door and pushed it open. The warm bell jangled, too bright for the cold tension that followed him inside. You! He barked, pointing at me. You got my kid. Hand her over. My voice came out steady, though my heart slammed. You need to lower your voice. We're in a public place. His lips curled. You think hiding her makes you a hero? This is kidnapping. Emily shrank behind my chair, fingers digging into the backrest. She's scared for a reason, I said. Back off. She's my stepdaughter. He shot back. Her mother can't keep her from me forever. Sarah stood then, her chair scraping. Her face was pale, but her eyes blazed. You don't get to say that anymore, Mark. I told you we're done. I threw you out. You lost custody when the court saw the police reports. He sneered. Yeah, reports. Lies you fed them. That girl's mine as much as yours. Emily's voice trembled. You hurt us. You hurt Mom. Mark's gaze darted to her, dark and sharp. Quiet. Something in me snapped. I stepped between them, my shoulders squaring. She doesn't have to be quiet. Not anymore. Inside my head, everything roared. I'm just a delivery driver trying to keep a roof over my own kid's head. But I'm not letting this man take her. Not after what she's been through. I pulled out my phone without looking away from him. This ends now. I'm calling the police. You call them, he said, voice dropping to a growl. And I'll tell them you took her. They'll believe me. You're no one. For a moment, the threat hung there. I thought of my overdue rent, of how fragile our lives already were. What if he's right? What if they dragged me out in front of Emily and Lily? Then I remembered the promise I made that night in the diner. Always protect children, even when they're not ours. I hit dial. The cafe went quiet except for the murmur of my voice as I explained the situation. The staff and a few customers watched from behind the counter, unsure whether to intervene. Mark stepped closer, but Sarah moved to block him, her hand outstretched. You don't get to come near her again. I won't let you. Emily clutched my sleeve tighter. I murmured to her, It's going to be okay. I'm right here. Her small nod felt like the weight of the whole world. Minutes stretched until the distant wail of a siren cut through the air. Mark shifted on his feet, glancing toward the window. Sit down, I said firmly. You're not walking out of here. The police arrived, 2 officers in dark coats. After a short, tense exchange, they guided Mark outside. His protests faded as the door swung shut behind them. Sarah sagged into her chair, her hands covering her face. I eased down beside her. You did the right thing coming here. I believe you. She nodded through tears. I should have left him sooner. Emily paid the price for my mistakes. Emily came around the table slowly, still gripping my sleeve, and looked at her mother. Are you really done with him this time? Yes, Sarah whispered. I promise. By the time we left the cafe, the snow had started falling again, soft, slow flakes against the glow of the streetlights. I held Emily's hand the whole way home. In the stairwell, she suddenly stopped and turned to me. Her eyes were shiny but steady. Daniel, she asked in a small, trembling voice. Yeah. You'll still be here for me, won't you? I didn't even have to think. I crouched so we were eye to eye. You'll never be alone again. Not as long as I'm here. Her fingers tightened around mine. Back in the apartment, Lily was waiting, curled up on the couch with a blanket and her doll. She looked up sleepily as we entered. Everything okay, Daddy? I forced a small smile. Yeah, Pumpkin. We're safe now. Emily sat beside her quietly. Lily scooted closer, offering half the blanket without a word. Emily accepted it with a tiny nod. I watched them, the weight of the night sinking into my bones. I don't know what comes next. The law will have its say. But tonight, at least they're safe. The next morning, just as I was pouring coffee, a firm knock rattled the door. I opened it to find 2 women in neat winter coats, standing in the hall, badges clipped to their collars. Mr. Carter? The taller one asked. We're with Child Protective Services. We need to speak with you about Emily. I felt the warmth drain from my face. I knew this moment would come, but I'm not ready to let her go. For a moment, I just stood there with the door half open, my fingers tight around the knob. The 2 women in neat winter coats waited, their breath making faint clouds in the hallway. Behind me, the apartment was quiet except for the soft crackle of the old heater and the faint glow of the tiny Christmas tree by the window. Mr. Carter? The taller one repeated gently. May we come in? I stepped aside. Yeah, of course. Their boots left faint wet prints on the worn floor as they entered. Emily peeked from behind the couch, half hidden by Lily, clutching the blanket like it was armor. Good morning, the other woman said. I'm Ms. Hayes, and this is my colleague, Ms. Grant. We're here to talk about Emily's situation. Emily shrank further behind Lily. Lily straightened up a little, as if trying to shield her friend. I cleared my throat. We were about to have breakfast. Can we sit at the table? Ms. Hayes nodded. Of course. We just need to ask a few questions. We sat at the small kitchen table. The Christmas tree's lights blinked softly in the background. I kept glancing at Emily. She refused to leave Lily's side. Ms. Grant spoke first. Emily, we're here to make sure you're safe. No one's here to hurt you. Emily's voice was barely a whisper. You're going to take me away, aren't you? The question pierced me. No, I said quickly, leaning forward. Nobody's taking you anywhere right now. We're just talking. Ms. Hayes watched me carefully. Mr. Carter, could you tell us how Emily came to live here? I rubbed my palms together. Keep it honest. Keep it simple. She showed up at the diner, where I work nights. She was hungry, scared. I couldn't just let her walk back out into the cold. Since then, she's been with us. I know I'm not her father, but I've done my best to keep her safe. Ms. Grant's gaze softened a little. And how has she been since staying with you? I looked toward the girls. Emily was staring at her lap. Lily gave her a tiny, encouraging nudge. She barely spoke at first. I said quietly, she woke up crying most nights. But then, Lily started reading to her. They made paper snowflakes for the window. A few days ago, I heard her laugh for the first time. Not a nervous laugh, a real one. That's when I realized she's starting to feel like a kid again. For a moment, the only sound was the hum of the heater. Say it, Daniel. Say what you've been holding back. I know the law has to run its course, I added. But it's Christmas morning. She's been through too much already. If you send her somewhere else now, I'm afraid we'll lose the progress she's made. She's not just a guest anymore. She's part of this family. I don't want her to feel abandoned again. Emily peeked up at me then, eyes shining, and shifted a little closer to Lily. Ms. Hayes folded her hands. Thank you for saying that. We've spoken to her mother and are aware of the situation. For now, the court needs to review custody. But given the circumstances and the fact that Emily seems to feel safe here, we're prepared to let her stay with you temporarily. Emily gasped softly, then quickly hid her face in Lily's shoulder. I exhaled, only then realizing I'd been holding my breath. Thank you. That means more than you know. Lily looked up at me with a shy smile. See, Daddy? I told you they'd listen. I ruffled her hair, my throat tight. She's braver than I give her credit for. Ms. Grant rose, tucking a file back into her bag. We'll check in after the holiday. Please keep Emily's routine steady and let her know she's safe. I will, I promised. After they left, the apartment felt both lighter and quieter. The girls stayed huddled on the couch, as if afraid speaking too loudly might break the fragile peace. I knelt in front of them. You heard what they said. You're staying here for now, Em. We'll face the rest together, one step at a time. She studied my face for a long moment. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, Thank you. The day unfolded slowly. We had pancakes that were a little too brown on the edges, and cocoa that was more milk than chocolate. But it felt right. When it was time for the small exchange of gifts, Lily darted to the tree and pulled out the last wrapped package. Second-hand paper wrinkled at the corners. This one's for you, Emily, she said. Daddy found it at the thrift store. Emily hesitated, then carefully peeled back the paper. Inside was a worn but clean doll with a faded pink dress and stitched smile. Her fingers brushed the doll's hair. Her lips curved into the smallest, shyest smile I'd ever seen on her. Something in my chest loosened at that sight. She's smiling, maybe for the first real time in years. Merry Christmas, I said softly. She hugged the doll to her chest. Merry Christmas. Lily leaned against my arm, proud and content. I slipped an arm around her shoulders, then looked at Emily, still holding the doll as if it were the most precious thing in the world. Fatherhood isn't just about blood, I thought. It's about showing up, about keeping your word, even when the world doesn't make it easy. For the first time in a long while, the apartment felt like a home. I don't think I'll ever forget that smile Emily wore when she hugged the doll. It was still in my mind weeks later, even as I sat on the wooden bench in the courthouse hallway, waiting for the judge's decision. Emily clutched my sleeve like she used to cling to the blanket. Lily sat beside her, legs swinging, humming softly. Across the hall, Emily's mother wrung her hands, glancing our way but saying nothing. The judge's words had been brief but heavy. Temporary guardianship granted to the mother, with visitation rights and ongoing supervision. When we stepped out into the winter air, Emily's mother turned to me. "Mr. Carter," she said, her voice rough but sincere. "I know I haven't earned your trust yet, but thank you for keeping her safe. I'd like you to stay in her life. She needs someone steady, a father figure." Emily's fingers tightened around my arm as if to answer for me. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "If Emily wants that, I'll be here. Always." Emily looked up at me then, eyes glistening but calm. "I do. I still want to come over. Sometimes. Can I, Mom?" Her mother nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Of course, sweetheart." A month later, on a quiet Saturday morning, I found myself staring out the living room window at two small figures tumbling in the snow beneath the old maple tree. Lily shrieked with laughter as Emily tried to roll a lopsided snowball into the base of what they insisted would be the world's biggest snowman. Their cheeks were flushed pink from the cold, their mittens damp, but neither cared. I leaned against the window frame, a mug of coffee warming my hands. I didn't think we'd get here, not after everything. I didn't think I had it in me to care for another child the way I do now. "Daddy." Lily's voice carried up through the thin winter air. "You're supposed to help with the snowman." Emily cupped her hands around her mouth. "Yeah, you promised you'd do the nose." I opened the window, just enough to shout back, "I'm making sure the hot chocolate's ready first. I'll be out in 5. They giggled together, then went back to their lopsided construction project. I closed the window and let the warmth of the apartment settle over me. I used to dread weekends, empty hours that reminded me of what I'd lost. Now they feel like gifts I don't deserve but won't waste. Later, as we sat at the kitchen table with steaming mugs, Emily cradled hers carefully as if it were fragile. "Your snowman's going to lean over by tomorrow," I teased. She grinned shyly. "That's okay. We'll fix it. Right, Lily?" Lily nodded with exaggerated seriousness. "We'll make it the strongest snowman ever. Like Dad strong." I laughed, shaking my head. That snowman doesn't stand a chance. For a heartbeat, the three of us shared a quiet smile that said more than words. That night, as I tucked Lily into bed, she whispered, "Daddy, is Emily still going to be with us forever?" I sat down on the edge of the bed. "She's with her mom most days now, but she'll come here on weekends. That means we still get to be part of her life." Lily thought about that, then nodded. "I like that. It's like having a sister, but sharing her." Her choice of words tugged at something deep in me. I kissed her forehead. "That's exactly right." Before turning off the lights, I peeked into the guest room, the one that used to feel too empty. Emily's weekend bag was by the wall, her doll lying neatly on the pillow as if it belonged there. I stood there for a moment, listening to the quiet of the apartment, and remembered my late wife's voice. "Always protect children, even when they're not ours." I whispered into the dim room. I kept my promise. The next morning, snowflakes drifted past the window again, catching the sunlight like tiny sparks. Emily and Lily were already pulling on their boots, eager for round 2 of snowman repairs. "Dad, hurry," Lily called. "You'll miss the fun." Emily added, "And bring the carrot for the nose this time." I grabbed my scarf, smiling despite myself. Maybe this is what healing looks like: messy snowmen, mismatched mittens, weekends that feel too short. When we finally finished the snowman, the girls stood on either side of it, cheeks red, eyes bright, their laughter rising to the crisp winter air. I looked at them, one my daughter by blood, the other by choice, and felt a quiet peace I hadn't known in years. The journey that began on that freezing night in the snow had led us here, to a patchwork family stitched together by kindness, grief, and a stubborn hope. As we headed inside to thaw our fingers, I thought again of my wife's words and silently thanked her. For the first time since she passed, Christmas didn't feel like a season I had to survive. It felt like home.